Okay, so welcome to February. This is not going to be like a full month vlog. It's mid-February already, but we are doing character this month. So I'm working on building out all my characters and all the information about them for my next book, right? And so I'm working on gathering all the information for the craft books I like. I'm rereading some craft books, reading some new craft books, making myself some cheat sheets, which I will share once I have those together. And I'm just kind of generally getting all that stuff together, but we're gonna start this video off with a little book haul, which let me grab all of those books real quick. Okay. Okay, so I got a number of new books. So the two that I want to show you first are actually more like world building ones, and I was reading a very interesting article, which I will remember to link below. I will remember. If I don't remember, just point it out in the comments, but I found a really cool article that is breaking down the like not statistical, but like the actual number-based analysis of whether or not the whole like East-West cultural phenomena in Guns, Germs, and Steels is actually accurate or not. And it was really freaking good. Okay, here we go. I found it. It's Brett Devereaux, a collection of unmitigated pedantry. And the article was like collections, the Freeman Mirage. And so I was reading that, and some of the sources that they link there are these two books, which I got, which is this book, which is The Origins of War, Violence in Prehistory by John Guillain and Jean Zamit, I think. And this is one of the sources that has some good stuff in it for, you know, some of the pieces he was talking about. He referenced like specific chapters that were good for sort of further explaining certain things. And then this chunker, War in Human Civilization by Azar Gat. So I have that. So at some point I'm going to read through these. This is not going to be a this month priority because I have a lot of stuff to get through anyway. And then I did a little bit of a haul in not necessarily character, but like writing craft books. So I got the Conflict Thesaurus because this was coming up a lot, and I will mention this in like my cheat sheets, but some of at the beginning of it, which if you've ever read one of these books, like they have a whole like thesaurus thing in it, like there'll be sections that it will explain like alternatives to it. So these are like, it's just like lots of different types of conflict and alternatives and like ways to look at that. But at the beginning, it has a bunch of information in it, which I've seen reference, and so I wanted to read it. And yeah, so I'm gonna look at this. This is volume 2. Oh, I accidentally got volume 2 instead of volume 1. I was gonna get volume 1 and try it out before I got volume 2, but I got volume 2. Oh, I might need to get volume 1. That explains why I wasn't seeing what I was looking for. And then I got the Emotional Wound Thesaurus, a writer's guide to psychological trauma, which I want to read for these sections on like, you know, emotional wounds, which is the whole, it's like goal, motivation, conflict, your misbelief. Story Genius goes a lot into like, you know, what was the origin event of their misbelief and all that. So I want to read the beginning of this where they sort of talk about how they're breaking it down. And then they have like, you know, a lot of various examples, which I don't know if I'm going to look at it for that. It's like an interesting thing to skim through for inspiration, but I mainly want to read it for the beginning. So I have that, and then I got, by Valerie Howard, 1,000 Character Reactions from Head to Toe, which I just thought seemed interesting. It's a lot shorter than I thought it would be, and there's room to make notes for about additional things. So, like, there's, like 89 pages, but, like, a lot of them are, like, not actually have anything on them, so like that. So I don't know, it's interesting. I'll look at that. And then I got the last 50 pages, sort of in anticipation of plotting the end, and also when I dive back into revisions in March. And this is The Art and Craft of Unforgettable Endings by James Scott Bell. So I will look at this, see what I think, and then since I've been reading Story Genius, I thought I'd get Wired for Story by Lisa Cron, which we'll see. It's more a focus on the brain science part, I think, than the like plotting part, which is what Story Genius is. So we'll see what I think about that. But yeah, I'm also doing a like book club right now on Story Genius, which is through Plotter, which I really do want to try to use this time around for plotting. I'm going to start in Plotter because I can't migrate to something like that. I learned that last time I tried to use it. Couldn't really migrate. I don't know. It didn't work for me. So I have all of these new books to try out and see what I think of, in addition to going back through all of the other books that I'm reading right now. But for right now, I'm going to work on going through my two main ones that I've been looking at, which is Character by Robert McKee and, oh my gosh, if you could see my desk right now, like, I just have giant stacks of books and notebooks open everywhere, but Story Genius by Lisa Cron, which I do really enjoy this, and I've talked about it before. I have a lot of notes in here. I have a lot of, like, various highlighting and stuff, so I'm going to go through there and work on putting together all my cheat sheets. I'm less sure about this than I was the theme and conflict one. There's just so many more approaches that are all similar, but not quite as similar, and I don't know. I need to figure that out. So that is what I'm going to work on right now. Okay, so it's Thursday. I have to be pretty quick because I have a lot to do right now, but I've made a lot of progress on my character work. Let me turn this around so you can see. Can you see that? Sorry about this, everyone. That is the notes I have taken so far. And yeah, it's a lot. But essentially what I've been working on is I'm going through every character. I started with the main character and I mapped out the lie, the wound behind the lie, or like the origin scene, like where that lie came from. Why is it true to them, right? Their unmet need, I wrote a section, and I haven't seen anywhere do this, but basically what I have is sort of as their main dimension, I have the fear and the flaw, right? So like the flaw being the character trait, the main character trait that comes from their fear, which comes from their lie. And then on the other side, I have their unmet need, so the thing they're suppressing or denying that they actually really need, but they can't get because of their fear. And then I have their, something I'm calling only allowed as, which I'm putting in as it's sort of like their want, but it's like the only way they are allowed or allow themselves to have their need. So like the main character, like what she really wants is like community and connection to other people, but she won't reach out to other people, right? She has this whole flaw that like keeps her from getting close to people. So her unmet need is only expressed through a lot of like intellectual sharing and like intellectual connection with people. So like that's an incredibly important thing for her. So I've got that figured out for everyone. I've gotten all the rest of their dimensions mapped up, and then I wrote like lists of like what else is a result of their fear and their wound, and like who were they before, like what is this version of themselves that they've lost or are hiding. And I've just been doing that. I'm doing some initial like brainstorming on the relationships and how they're different like dimensions and traits, and like the things that would be like triggering for them, like how that would push and pull each other. I've been using red to like star like conflict triggers and stuff like that. So I've done all of that, and then I made myself, I need to move this. Sorry. I made myself little like cheat sheets for the start of like my character profiles, which I'll make like official cheat sheet versions once I'm ready to do this for real, but it just has like all the sections. To just like give you a little idea of what this kind of looks like. But then there's like multiple pages to it. So I'm working on that. I'm copying all the notes from all my characters onto my paper here. And then I'm going to start working on brainstorming out like the relationships and other aspects and trying to dive in really, really deep into who these people are. So I'm making good progress. Very, very good progress, but I need to work on some technical stuff right now. Well, am I still zoomed in? Oh, that's better. I'm doing something really scary tomorrow. I am actually going to be interviewing someone, and you will see that video will be up on my channel already because it'll hopefully be up early next week, but I had someone reach out to me and they were like, hey, and they are the editor of a Sword and Sorcery, like a New Age Sword and Sorcery magazine. And they're like, oh, you know, we have a Kickstarter going on for like the next 2 issues and like et cetera, like, would you want to like interview me? And I went through, I read a bunch of their issues, I went through everything, like, we emailed back and forth a little bit, and like, I think it's great. Like, they have a lot of, like, it's just great. I'll link it down below, but if that's out, you should totally go watch it. But I'm doing that tomorrow, the interview, and I just, like, he contacted me yesterday. So yes, I've done one other interview before, and I've streamed once. So I have all of my stuff. I found it in my cabinet. I have my like cam link thing to let me like stream record from my camera as if it was like a webcam. And then I have this thing, which, oh, this is for my old camera. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. This is not the type of camera battery this camera has, and I don't have my old camera anymore. Okay, so that's not gonna work. That is not gonna work, and I don't think I can do that. Okay, we're gonna need to pivot. Okay, I'm gonna need to figure out how the hell I'm gonna do this, so I gotta go, I gotta figure it out. Okay, bye. So it is, let's move you up a little bit. All right. It is the 6th of March. I am back from my writing retreat, which was fantastic. I got all of that footage uploaded, and I'll do the writing retreat vlog in a couple of weeks probably, but since I spent that whole time working on character, I basically wrapped up what I was working on in my like February. It's not lining up to exact months, but my rough like month of character, right? And so I wanted to kind of show you / walk through what I ended up doing during this, and like figuring all of this out has been very overwhelming for me with creating the cheat sheets, which I need to actually finalize the cheat sheets and basically turn what I ended up making, like reverse create the cheat sheet so that I can reference it later, and also so that I can share it with you without showing you like all of my notes, which I don't want to do. And I'll do that in a separate video probably once I actually have that created. But I really figured it out for something that works for me anyway. Because one of the things that was really overwhelming for me was trying to get the notes in a structured way in which they were actually helpful, right? Because like going through and having that like character creation like checklist where you just do a ton of stuff and think about it, and then this character can just exist in your head, doesn't work for me at all, because like I'm not gonna remember those random details in a way where it's gonna create like, I don't know, like that just doesn't really work for me. So the first thing that I was working on, and I think this is semi-similar to the cheat sheets that I showed you before, right? So yeah, I'm pretty sure I showed these to you before, and I think I have it actually written down, but it's essentially this sort of a structure where I have wounds, the lie, I have the fear and the flaw, and then that's like sort of contrasted with the unmet need and the way that unmet need is presented, right? So like the only way they can achieve that unmet need, or like what they think is enough, you know what I mean? And then I have information about the other fallout from that, so like wound fallout, who they used to be, what their safe world looks like, notes and ideas about how to reveal their wound, like in the story, what triggers them, what helps them heal / pulls out their unmet need. And then I didn't end up doing a lot of that. I ended up doing something else. Yes, I have all of that. I put their character dimensions on this again. And then I have like a history, which I haven't filled out that much. I'll like kind of go back in as I get more of the like society specific details and put that in there. But then I have their origin moment, their crossroad moments, which is from Story Genius, notes on their internal arc timeline, and then just like things that could happen that would strengthen their lie or fear, and things that could happen to strengthen their unmet need, which is sort of that battle that's going on for them. And then I have like kind of just some random notes that I got from, I think it's from Character by Robert McKee, but you know, describe them naked, describe them clothed, describe their, you know, gender and sex life, describe their work, their play, what they know, what they're ignorant about, what their manners are and how they treat people, what's their like vocal tone and language, like all that kind of stuff. And then like a general list of the characters that person would know that might come up that I might want to world build later. But I went through this, right? And I got through all this and I'm like, this isn't super helping me that much. And then, and like I didn't know how to turn it into a format that would be helpful. And then what I did is I went through and I created the relationship, like the little like relationship pages, which I did this for every combination of characters in my 5 combination group. So like I'm not gonna do the math, but like it's like, what is it, like 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1, it's like 5 exclamation point or something. I don't know math. But so like here's an example one between my martial artist and my linguist. Here I just kind of put some of their like contrasting or like traits that would pull on each other for positive or negative reasons, a couple of like notes, general notes, and then I have these sections, which these are the sections that I've sort of broken my plot, like the found family part of my plot into. So I have like when they initially meet each other, which is essentially when they are in the phase of like, right, they're just showing their what does he call it? Like your public self, like the version of yourself that you show to like strangers or, like formal people, like really loose acquaintances maybe, right? Like this is all for show. This is your public self, right? There's nothing personal. You're not seeing anything deeper, much, right? So like this is when they're all in that stage. It's all very tentative, right? And then it breaks into hostility. I'm just calling it their hostile self instead of like their personal self, but it's essentially like their worst true traits, right? So like these are still things that are like part of their like inner person that's showing through, but they've sort of shed that public self and they're kind of just like hating each other and they're just like, And then I have their fragile selves or their fragile bond, like that stage where they are all sort of like they aren't fully accepting each other, but they're all kind of like there's like a fragile piece. So that stage, and that's where they're starting to show like hints of that like super inner true character, but also there's still a lot of hesitations. This is a phase where there's a lot of like, I guess that pull between the unmet need and the fear, because this is where the character is really aware of it, right? Like they're aware of what they're afraid of and they're aware of what they want that they can't have, but they are not really at the place where they can choose one yet, right? So like if you consider in a book, right, your competing ideals should be strengthening and getting stronger and stronger and stronger as the book goes, right? Because we're escalating, right, throughout the book. So the same thing sort of happens here. Like before, you'll see like hints, of their, like they may be being awful to each other, but you're only kind of seeing hints of those deep wounds. You're only seeing hints of their true, better, like self, whatever, right? But it's not until this stage where those are really like, the character is more aware of them and they're constantly conflicted, right? So like that version of themselves where they are sometimes maybe giving in to that true inner self, that unmet need, but then also sometimes they're like completely triggered and reacting to their wounds and they're having these really strong like personal feelings. Like they're not just like angry at people, like they are experiencing pain and struggle and conflict trying to figure out how to handle this, right? Because they're afraid. So that phase, then the break, which like if you look at like Save the Cat, this is sort of like your the darkest moment, Dark Night of the Soul kind of a beat where basically they have decided the wrong thing, right? They've decided in their fears and they've all given into their fears for the most part, right? They've all given into their fears. They're broken up as a friend group, right? And then they come back stronger than ever when they realize like, hey, no, like this is absolutely not acceptable. Like their unmet need pulls so hard that they're like, I can't keep giving into this fear anymore. And they have to make that choice. And like for some of them, that choice is a little bit more separate. Some of them, it's going to be more like interwoven and it's going to be a little bit of a domino effect to an extent, right? But like then you have strong, right? These are their true inner selves having decided that they are going to choose to, be their true selves, conquer their fear, right? Fear is still there, but they're conquering it, right? These are all distinguished phases. And I went through and did this for all the characters, And halfway through, I was like, I'm struggling with this. Like this is just, I think this is a useful thing to think about, but it's like, how do I turn this into something that I'm actually going to be able to use, right? Like this very much felt like an intermediate step for me. And so I did a lot of thinking on what I would want to reference, because I'd always wanted to have like a cheat sheet that I could have for these characters that would be like a reference. Like, you know, you always have more details and backstories and yada yada, but you want something that's like, you know, if I'm working on a big scene between two characters, I can pull these pages out and be like, okay, yeah, these are all the nuanced things I need to keep in mind. And like all the stuff I've created, it's like, this is all over the place. Like, the characters aren't going to be split up like this where they're only having one-on-one interactions. Like, I need like this character and this character and this character. So do I need both of those relationship sheets and all three of their like 3 pages of individual sheets? Like, how do I make a cheat sheet for this, essentially, was what I was trying to think about. And what I ended up doing, let me pull this up. And again, like, I will show this more when I actually create like cheat sheet versions of this. But for every single stage, I created a page for each character. So that basically, if I am working like writing in that initial segment, I will have these cheat sheets. Because the thing is, and this is the thing that I've always struggled with characters and relationships, they change throughout the book, right? And like, it needs to feel organic. It needs to feel like real while also still feeling like the same character. So I basically took the notes I already had, expanded them, and then broke them up into what was relevant at each stage. So like, let me show you an example. So this is like an initial page for the witch. And so I have their outer self. And this is just basically the things that would be visible to the other characters. So like, this is the way like I would be presenting that character, right? I have the known reputation of others. So like, these are either they know the person and this is what they know about them, like their preconceived notions of them. Or it could be like, oh, they don't know anything about them, but, you know, they are someone who works, you know, in academia and they have feelings about academia, like that predisposes them to like this person or trust them or respect them or think poorly, etc. Like that sort of a thing for every single character. Then I have their motivation for joining, so like why they joined the group and are, you know, part of this in the first place. And then I have their tics, so things that led them towards accepting joining the group, because this is not a multi-POV book. So we're not going to be showing those other POVs, but I want to be able to like have that be like mentioned so that you can sort of get hints of it. Like one of their tics is that they were denied a promotion. That's totally something that could come up at some point, and then that would just make that feel so much deeper, you know? Background accomplishments, so things that they would be like proud of themselves for, things that might come up in those initial conversations. Some notes on quirks, just like these are things that are more relevant throughout, but like I put them here because like, you know, starting at the beginning, their voice, and I left more room for this, and then whatever the turning point is to this character being hostile, right? So like, what are they experiencing? What are they feeling? What are they thinking? Like, what would turn them, right? And so I did this for every character. And then I did, let me see if I can find the same one. So then I did that for hostile. And I have, you know, their hostile self, their hints of their true hidden self. So like how little bits of it might start to shine through, things that would trigger them, how they will respond when they're triggered, how they approach their goals while being hostile, right? So whatever that, you know, whatever their behavior is, that's going to affect how they're going about their goals and how they're interacting as a group, right? I have what their updated opinions of others are and their turning point to fragile, right? So I have that for every single character. And as I did these also, I was writing little scene notes, which I'll get to in a minute, but let's see, where's fragile? Here we go. So then for fragile, again, my witch, I have their inner self / vulnerability, secret motivation / goal. So these are both like, if there was a motivation that they didn't share before, right? Like they had their public motivation and then their like secret motivation, I put that here. / if their motivation has changed, right? I have that. I have a section about why and how they can't reconcile their unmet need with the lie, right? So like how that's creating conflict for them. Surfacing wounds, so way their wounds are going to be surfacing even more. The new line that they won't cross, right? Because now they're like, they acknowledge their unmet need, they're sort of allowing themselves to be more vulnerable and go after this a little bit, but like they're still afraid and they're still not prepared to like conquer that, right? So like, what's that new line for them? What their fragile opinion of others are, and then what's their turn to the darkest moment, which leads into the break and then the strong section, right? So for break, I just have, okay, notes on when they realize the line Y has denied himself need. So like what he's going to be thinking about, what he will realize that he's done, right, because of this. How this is shown, what their aha moment is, and then in the strong section, I have their true self, and then all the things that they've kept themselves from being able to do before that now they'll do, right? And so I did that for every single character, and this did take a lot of time, as I'm sure you are unsurprised. And these will be really good references, but what they also allowed me to do, and let me see if I have a picture of this on my phone. I think I took one. But I basically started doing like a sticky note, like plotting wall, right? Except it's not really, they weren't plot points. They were emotional moments or like little turning points between friends, or like, what's a way I could show this trigger? Well, this will probably happen. And it could just be a single line that will fit into one of the scenes, or it could be a whole scene or a series of scenes. Yeah, here we go. This is sort of what it looked like, right? That wall that I did. And I show all this in the, writing vlog when I eventually get around to that, but that's essentially what I did. And I've moved them to pages of paper, so I have like all of them roughly in order here. And I love this, because this is the part that's really hard for me to do, right? Because when you're in the middle of writing a scene, it's hard to think about like, yes, well, this one character relationship that's barely even present in the scene, right? Like, you maybe see this character for a moment. Like, this character relationship is slowly moving in this direction. What's one thing I could just add in the background details of this scene as, like, your character walks through the room and sees them interacting? What little background detail could I have to show what's happening behind the scenes of that relationship growing and changing and the way they're interacting with each other? And, like, to do that for everything and every character, and, like, just to be able to write the dialogue in the scenes and remember, like, this is what these characters are thinking about each other. This is what they're trying to do right now. This is what they're struggling with. This is what they're avoiding at every single major stage in the book. And to be able to keep all that in mind, like, I can't do that when I'm writing. I know some people can. That's like, getting in your, getting into your pantsers and all that. But I can't do that at all. And this is one of the things I really struggle with. So like, maybe I'll do it better in the future once I've really figured this out. But this has been so helpful. Like, I have this whole like initial meetup, like how they're going to behave, right? And it's like, okay, well, as I was going through, I was like, oh, you know what? My witch would probably be really bossy and controlling. And that's something that would specifically trigger my alchemist, right? So they're going to probably really butt heads on this at first, where they're like, oh yeah, you need to do it this way and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, excuse me, back off, please don't talk to me, right? That is a interaction and dynamic that would absolutely happen because of who these characters are, right? And so I just have this for all of it. And some of these are like more detailed scenes. Like, one of my characters has a scar that, they cover up with makeup. And so it's like, oh, like, at some point, like, they could come out as part of that vulnerability and, like, maybe not be covering it up, right? Because they're embracing, like, that real self and not feeling like they have to be perfect all the time and that they have to be, like, this, like, idol for whatever, right? Like, that could be a really powerful moment that's, like, it's just, like, a little detail, right? It's little. But then, like, maybe after they break, after weeks of this character not bothering putting on makeup on, all of a sudden they're wearing all their makeup again. They're armored up, right? Figuratively. And like details like that, like these aren't all scenes, right? They're moments. They're not even necessarily in the right order. They're just grouped by those sections. And then like maybe roughly in that order, like beginning of this section, later in this section-ish. Some of them are like the same ones, so I put them together. But like, I had so many good moments, especially for those big turning point scenes, like the break, when they come back together. Like, I was like, oh, well, if these characters are like this, then obviously this is what's gonna happen. And I would never have been able to think about it while I was writing it. And it's like, it's just so many moving threads and pieces that are like intertwining in so many different ways that's so complex in a story like this, right? Where it's like this found family, this heist vibe, where you have these characters coming together and they're forced to kind of complete this, you know, job together. And there's just so many moving pieces, and this is something I really struggle with. And it's single POV, right? Like, part of the main POV's arc is that they expect and see the worst in everyone. So, like, the way they're going to be seeing what people are doing, they're going to be viewing it negatively, and I need to have enough there that, like, the readers can sort of see what's really happening. And, like, as the main character is starting to see that too, like, that reveal needs to be what the character is also, like, what's also being revealed to them, right? So it's like, it's a lot, and it's been very overwhelming for me, but doing this, like, it's like it all clicked. It's like, okay, like, I have all my threads now. I know where all the threads are at different times. I have all these little points, all the places that all these little threads intertwine, and, like, little ways to show this, right? Because, like, I was thinking about that as I went. Like, oh, like, they're fragile now. What are ways that, like, they'll give in and ways they aren't? And, like, what are these struggles going to be? And, like, just, like, those moments, you know, those, like, a little emotional moments that can happen. And I'm very excited about it. What I'll probably do next, not right now next, but, like, in the future next with this, is erase all my character stuff off my whiteboard, move these sticky notes up there, and start expanding on this and grouping them more into scenes, right? But that's also getting into the outlining stages where I need to know more about what they're actually doing, because, like, does this have anything to do with, like, the actual plot? No. It's like, oh, like, at some point when they need to go do a thing, something like this might happen. I don't know what that thing is, though, right? So I need to, like, put it out there, start brainstorming more on that stuff. But again, I need to have the magic system figured out more for that to know exactly what they need to do, what their options are. You know, like, there's a lot more stages, but all of that is accounted for in my book and my project planning, right? Because we're only on an early phase. We're on character prep, underline prep. I have a whole nother section with characters and dialogue where we're deep diving into the character details, the character arcs, their dialogue styles, the things that they'll say. And then that's not even, like, outlining, right? So, like, I did way more than I needed to do for this, right? Like, I got way further ahead than I needed to, but it makes so much sense to me. I have so much stuff to reference. This was absolutely fantastic, and I'm really excited. So, to wrap up, you can look out for, once I create little cheat sheets of this to share with you, and again, this is for kind of my plot and how I'm structuring this found family thing. But, like, it could be an interesting thing for you to think about, like, the stages in your book for your characters in terms of their arcs, how to divide it, what things you need to know at each stage. Like, it could be useful. So I'll share those, and then I'll also share my, like, those earlier, like, character cheat sheets, which I already have all the basic ones, but I'll share all that in a video. I will do a writing retreat vlog. I love doing the writing retreat vlogs. They take forever to edit, though, but they're so much fun. I'll put that together, and then it's March now, so I'm moving on to the next stage, which is structure, actually. So I'm going to be going through all my structure books again, making structure cheat sheets, figuring out what basically making myself little cheat sheets for how I want to plot it, what structure I want to use. I'm going to update my scene card templates and figure out what I want to do now. Like, just all that kind of stuff. Get all my notes together, all the things I want to remember, pull it all in, and get all that ready for this month, so that when I get to outlining, I'll already have these, like, worksheets and, like, templates ready for me to go, and all my notes just right there. And then also this month, I'm going to be starting my read-through of my Magic Forged book, which I finished the first draft of December? I think so. It's been sitting for a few months. So I'm going to do my read-through. I'm going to take notes. And I think I have most of the month to finish the read-through, and then I can start making notes and then putting, like, a study guide. And I might retroactively do some of this stuff I'm figuring out now. Like, really break out those character relationships, really break out some of the themes and the competing ideals, and, like, some structure stuff, because I'll have all the structure stuff figured out, right? So, like, I'm going to reuse it on that too. So I'm excited. That'll probably be a vlog. I don't know. Filming this stuff while I'm doing it is helpful because I can talk about it and it encourages me to put it in a format that is like digestible by you, which means it's digestible by future me, which is really helpful. But yeah, I have a feeling this clip is already, what, 25 minutes long? That's too long. Oh well. So yeah. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one.